Hey guys, welcome to NerdCrave, and welcome to the last kind of holiday-themed video of 2020. I guess this is probably going to be going up on January 1st or 2nd, as soon as I get this all edited and put together, but this is kind of the end of the holiday season for me, and what a lot of people do is they like to kind of wrap up how the year has gone. There's so many of these videos, and I really wanted to go in a bit of a different direction this year. Instead of talking about the best games of 2020 or the whatever, the stuff everybody does, this year I wanted to take a little bit of a different approach and do 2020, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I've brought several of my friends in to comment on the best, the not so great and the absolute worst situations in 2020, and kind of where we're hoping to just kind of wrap up and move on from here. So stick around, guys. It's going to be an interesting video. I'm glad to welcome my friends SmashJT, Papa Pete, and Jeff from GoGameGo. So yeah, stick around. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, Papa Pete the Old Guy Gamer here, and I was asked today by Aaron to come on to NerdCrave and talk a little bit about 2020, the year that was, and more specifically, the good, the bad, and unfortunately the ugly, because there were some of all three. Anyway, it's going to be a pretty great show, and I can't wait to share it with you.
What's going on, NerdCrave? Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this collaboration. The good, the bad, and the ugly from 2020. What a hell of a year it was. I actually was thinking a lot more about this than I thought I was going into it. Without further ado, let me start off with the good. As far as the good from 2020, my favorite part of it was a new generation of consoles. I was one of the fortunate ones to get a PlayStation 5 pre-order in at GameStop. Right when they went live, I had to buy one of the bundles. It was like $800 something, but it was worth it because these things are still on resale aftermarket from scalpers, going for upwards of $1,000 to $1,100-$1,200. It's insane for what they cost. So that was a good thing for me, being able to get one of these right off the bat, and then actually playing it, Astro's Playroom or whatever the game that comes with it was, with the analog stick and the force feedback triggers. It truly feels like a next generation console, and then playing Spider-Man Miles Morales on it on a new 4K TV. It is just gaming bliss. One of the most favorite things I had from 2020, and there were a lot of good things from it, but this one definitely stands out to top the list.
Let's talk about the good first and foremost. I gotta say this about it. The COVID epidemic has been extremely hard on so many people. It's just affected us. Well, everybody in society is affected. But one thing we've seen this year, and I'm going to call it good, is with everybody being home all the time, there's been a real rising interest in retro games. They're more accessible nowadays. You hear more about them. Companies are more inclined to put out products for retro gaming because so many more people are doing it. There's so much better sales. And it really is good for those of us who love it so much because we have more things to pick from. There's more online stores. There's more people on different pages, whether it be Facebook or eBay or wherever, selling games. We have more access to these games, and for some of us, it's been hard to find some of the games we're really looking for. And 2020 has really brought out a resurgence that we had obviously seen in the last 5 years, but it really seems to be peaking this year in 2020. So, in my opinion, nothing better than promoting retro games. So I'm going to call that the big good of 2020.
Hi, this is Jeff from GoGameGo. Aaron asked if I would contribute to his video for the good, the bad, and the ugly of video games 2020. So here we go. As far as the good, I would say this right here, the Evercade. This system really surprised me. When I first heard about it, I didn't think much of it. The more and more, though, that I found out about it, the more excited I got. And they're actually up to, I believe, 14 games now. 14 cartridges, I should say. Because, each cartridge comes with anywhere from like 2 to 20 games. Now, what's really surprised me about this system is the quality of a lot of these games. I mean, not everyone's a winner, but quite a few are. And what's really nice is quite a few of them are games I've never even heard of. And to play a game I've never heard of, all of a sudden I was like, wow, this is really good. That's great. The system even connects to your TV through HDMI, so you can play on the big screen. Overall, just very impressed. They're still updating software with this, which is good. And they also have several games already slated for next year. So this wasn't like a one and done. And the system itself is only $100 and it comes with 3 cartridges. If you want just the system all by itself, it's only $80. So to me, this was just the big surprise of the year and the biggest good I could think of.
Okay, so this year, the good for me has really been something that a lot of people have experienced. And, it's not just me, but hundreds of thousands of people that I have been following on Twitter and Facebook and seen all over the internet is that people have been rediscovering their backlogs. People have been going back to games that they couldn't beat 10 or 20 or 30 years ago, and they've gone on with the time that we've had available to us during this situation. They have gone on to beat games like Battletoads or a lot of these games that back in the day, whether it be on the Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis or the PS1, I've heard stories of people going back and finishing Final Fantasy VIII because they weren't a big fan at the time, but they've now discovered that the game really holds a charm that they didn't really understand back in the day. I've seen a lot of YouTubers talking about stuff like this too, where they've been going back into their backlog and just checking off game after game after game. And it's a really great feeling to finally kind of wrap up those things that have been hanging over your head. I know I've got a handful of games that I really enjoy that I haven't beat yet, and I've been working on those. But the real breakout story for me this year has been my relationship with my Nintendo Switch. I've developed such a loving relationship with my Nintendo Switch, in a lot of thanks to Animal Crossing New Horizons, because that game really, for the 20 million people who bought it this year, it was the savior of their mental health. And I can speak for myself that I have managed to relieve so much stress just running around my island, and the peaceful nature of it, and everything's so cute, and it really has been able to take my mind off my problems, and I've been able to put a ton of time into that game compared to a lot of gaming in the past, where I would tend to pick up a game and play it for 2 hours and chuck it aside if it wasn't an amazing game. I've really been able to invest time in a lot of games that I'm really enjoying, like Trials of Mana, for example, and discover some new indie games and little things like Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. Fantastic game. I've really enjoyed playing that on my Switch. Horizon Chase Turbo. A lot of these games have just been fantastic for me this year, and I've really appreciated the growth of my relationship with the Nintendo Switch.
Alright, as far as the bad from 2020, there are a lot of things to pick from as far as gaming's concerned, but for me it's going to be something unique, and that is Pikmin 3 Deluxe on the Nintendo Switch. Which is weird because Pikmin 3 is one of my favorite games ever. Like, a fantastic classic adventure that everyone deserves to play and will, for the most part, enjoy it. But when I saw Pikmin 3 Deluxe come out for the Switch, I had to pick it up because, yeah, like I said, I love this game and wanted to be able to play it on the go and be able to experience the deluxe additions to it, like the extra levels and things like that. Ultimately, it was quite minimal, but still it was nice to have some additions onto it. But what's bad about it was, for the longest time, I've been waiting for Pikmin 4. And what do we get? A port. Not just a port, though. Another port. Like, it feels like all Nintendo's doing is porting a bunch of Wii U games over to the Switch for people that never experienced them the first time around. Which is great. like I said, for the people that missed it, but for people who have been loyal supporters of these games for a very long time, it would be nice to continue the series and be able to play a sequel. That's all I want. That's all I'm asking, and apparently that's too much for Nintendo.
Unfortunately, with every good, there tends to be an equal bad to go along with it. And even though the rising popularity of retro gaming in 2020 has been very good in my opinion, the bad that goes along with it is the rising prices that go right along, because the prices for some of these retro gaming systems have just gone through the roof. And I can remember looking at some systems which were very inexpensive to collect for before 2020. And they're starting to get up higher and higher as well. The reason being is that even before 2020 hit and the popularity became so much larger, systems like the NES were already, SNES even, were going through the roof. The prices are really high, and as more and more people come into the hobby in 2020, they realized that it just wasn't economically feasible to get heavy into the NES and the SNES collecting, which really brought an increase in prices to other systems, most notably the GameCube, and really the Dreamcast was always up there a little bit, but even the generation with the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox, they've really increased a lot in 2020. Also hit with this is I'm seeing more and more Atari collecting. The prices of Atari games are really going up as well. I can remember trying to collect all the Atari games in box, and I could get most of them. I bought most of them for less than $10 each over the last 3 or 4 years too. And now, something as simple as basic math, which has gone from, a relatively rare game of $20, $25 complete in box, they now want like $150 for it, which is absolutely ridiculous. Is this artificial? I don't know. With the rising popularity, I think it's like anything else. It's going to be a big peak, and I really do think it'll level off, go down a little bit, and plateau. But ultimately, the rise in interest in 2020 is still going to create an overall game price increase, and I consider that, as a collector, bad. If I'm an investor, it's great. I'm not an investor. I'm a video game lover and a video game collector, so the increased price like this, to me, is probably the biggest bad of 2020.
All right, for the bad. Bad would have to be the delay of the Intellivision Amico. I've been following that for like three plus years now, I think. And I was all ready for October for the system. And then it got pushed back to 2021 until April. So for me personally, that hit the hardest, because I was really excited for it. Excited for the new controller type. Something we haven't seen in a while, especially with that nice screen. So that is the biggest thing I was missing in 2020 by far. One other thing I was missing in 2020 was the Polymega. That also got pushed back to next year, 2021. And I wish I could have got my hands on that, because that looks like a really exciting retro item.
So for me, the bad this year really goes out to companies who have not adapted to the situation quickly enough, and or companies who are using our current socio-political virus situation to profit from the situation, or to restructure their companies in ways that are beneficial to them, and just using COVID as some kind of an excuse, some kind of a cop-out. So we see, not just in games, but in movies, Hollywood is being decimated by a lot of this, but there are a lot of ways that Hollywood could have recovered a lot faster and got us these movies that we were all expecting. So many things have been delayed this year, and some of those delays have been very legitimate. And sometimes a delay is very good for a video game. Looking at you, CD Projekt Red, you should wait another 6 months before you put that game out. But, a lot of the delays that we're seeing really have more to do with a company's sales projections than it does with any real legitimate problems that they've been having during COVID in terms of supply lines or getting development done. There have been some legitimate delays, and those have really sucked for us, so that's still bad. But I feel like there are a lot of illegitimate delays and a lot of situations where companies are looking to, retailor or redesign their business model, and they just took this convenient opportunity. And, I can't really give any specific examples. I don't want to cause controversy, but, the bad for me is people who are taking advantage of the situation to their own profit instead of trying to, reach out and help people and do the best we can in this terrible situation.
This one's gonna shock you guys as far as the ugly from 2020, and I'm being extremely sarcastic when I say this because it's obvious. I don't know if other people are gonna come up with the same one, but the story of the century when it comes to gaming. Cyberpunk 2077. An okay game. I mean, I'm not loving it like some people are, but it's not terrible on the PlayStation 5. The problem comes in when they label it PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. When these play on the previous generation consoles, they are beyond broken. And what CD Projekt Red did, restricting reviewers on what they're allowed to see, what they're allowed to play, and what they're allowed to talk about before this game came out, just so they could hide the fact that it was an extremely broken, what amounts to be, port of the game to a previous generation console, that's scummy. That's ugly. It's one of the worst things I've seen a company do. This is a guy that's followed EA and Bethesda for a while, but to see CD Projekt Red, who's been so storied when it came to the Witcher franchise and what they were doing to transcend gaming, and then what amounts to being just a cash grab on previous generation consoles that they promised to fix with updates, but ultimately the game wasn't ready. It shouldn't have released for the previous generation consoles. I truly feel bad for the people that bought this, excited about it, but weren't able to upgrade their consoles and were basically advertised a lie. That easily takes the cake for my ugliest thing of 2020.
Now let's get into the ugly. I'm going to touch on something that's a little bit controversial. I know Aaron is very much into this system that's coming out over the next couple of years, and that is basically the internet trolling and hatred that is out there for the Intellivision Amico. I love the Amico, and I'm going to tell you why. Is because I'm a lover of the old Intellivision system. It's my favorite system. It brings back a lot of memories, and my focus when they announced that the Intellivision Amico was coming out is my concern is I want to see all those former 125 games not only presented in their original form but remastered and reinvented in a modern scope, but maintaining the same type of old style gaming system and gaming fun. None of these heavy in-depth multiplayer microphones, headphones, none of that stuff. I just want to be able to stand on the couch with a friend or even online a little bit, but just peer-to-peer and play these games, these simple games against each other. And for whatever reason, there seems to be this group, all led by certain YouTube people who they thrive upon negativity in order to try to increase their revenues, to stir up people for no particularly good reason. I can remember back in the day, if you didn't really like something, you just sort of ignored it. And if enough people liked it, well, that's their business. If you didn't like it, you just left it alone. Big friggin' deal. But now it seems that there's people who can make money by promoting hatred towards things. So that is just such a terrible thing in our society nowadays. And to me, there is nothing more ugly than the hatred that's been shown and the negativity and the intentional sabotage for the entire system before it's even been released. Here a person is trying to release a system with all kinds of great retro aspects of it, bringing back from the era of the past, the Intellivision system, and knowing full well that that cannot sustain a system on its own. You have to bring other elements into it, and that's what they're trying to do. If anybody's going to make a system like this successful, combining the retro reimagine, the educational purpose of it, the family entertainment aspect of a system, is Tommy Tallarico. He's proved success in doing things that people didn't think he should be able to do, most notably for Video Games Live. And to have the group of people out there who, for no other reason than maybe a personal dislike for the creator himself, Tommy Tallarico, I don't know. That kind of negativity to me is just the epitome of the ugliest that we have in our society today. So there it is. that, for me, is the big ugly for 2020.
As far as the ugly, I'm going to go with the numerous delays and cancellations, especially with gaming conventions. I know most of the smaller ones got wiped out this year. That really sucked. I was looking forward to going to some this year. Also, E3 was completely canceled. I know a lot of people complain about E3. I personally really enjoy that E3 week, or at least those 3 or 4 days. I find that a lot of fun. Unfortunately, we didn't get any of that this year. We ended up getting bits and pieces kind of dripped out slowly instead of all condensed into that one week, which I really miss. And I really want to go to some. Hopefully next year we'll have the conventions back, because I'd really like to go hit some of the smaller ones. I've only been to the one around here, the GoGameGo here in Missouri. I'd really like to hit the Too Many Games convention this year. So let's hope. Hopefully we can go back to all those 2021. So that's it for me. That's my good, bad, and ugly. Thanks, Aaron, for having me on. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
The ugly this year for me really has been the gaming community, and the controversies that we've been rocked with this year have really not been any worse than the controversies we see in other years. But because a lot of people are home and they're invested in things like gaming and entertainment because they don't have anything else to do. A lot of people are paying attention and really getting involved and really getting polarized onto different sides of these debates. And whether you want to talk about the PS5 scalper situation, which Lord knows we've seen scalper situations for years and years. I mean, look back to the NES and Super Nintendo mini consoles getting bought up like crazy and scalped. Like, this is not news, but for some reason this year the PS5 scalper news has just been through the roof. Every YouTuber's been talking about it. Every person in the community's been talking about it. There's been post after post after post on groups like Console Purist and other Facebook groups. Everybody's talking about the PS5 scalper situation, and people are getting really salty about it. And I get salty about scalpers too, but it's a fact of life in any kind of collectibles industry. And other things that we look at this year that are controversies, things like the Cyberpunk 2077, CD Projekt Red launched a broken game. That's a bad thing. They should not have launched the game. They straight up lied to people. However, we have seen this kind of thing happen over and over and over again, even as recently as Fallout 76 a couple of years ago. And, the internet was not on fire for those things back then. Sure, there was some pissed off people, but, we've seen stuff like with the Cyberpunk situation, like Sony actually taking the game down off their servers, not allowing it to be sold, because of all the people demanding refunds, and, the controversy is really out of hand. And that, to me, is the really ugly part of 2020, is that, while people do have more time to experience new things, people have also more time on their hands to get angry about stuff and make a big deal about stuff that's really not that big of a deal. Like, sure, they should not have launched that game, but you know what? Give them 3 or 4 months to update it a couple of times, and the game is going to be playable. I mean, come on, people. It's not the end of the world. Like, yes, they did not deliver on their promise. Yes, what they did was unscrupulous, but it's, so something about 2020 has just got people so riled up and so tense, and with all the political stuff that's going on in the landscape with the election and everything, it seems like people are so hard to one side or the other of a debate, and people can't just really have a discussion anymore. And I really feel like that is the absolute ugly of 2020, is that, people are starting to lose their sense of community.
once again, I want to say thank you so much, NerdCrave. Thank you for having me on this. Thank you for the amazing support package you sent me for Christmas time and all the Canadian candies and foods and beers. It was awesome. My family is still going through it. I'm loving it so far, and I can't thank you enough, dude. Thank you for your support, and have a great 2021, everybody. And you stay smashing.
Anyways, guys, thanks for sticking around. It's been really interesting discussing this with you guys and with my friends here. So if you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and subscribe. I've got a whole bunch of cool stuff planned for 2021. Some great game reviews coming up, some pickup videos, a couple of projects that I'm working on for some favorite TV shows and movies that I want to discuss. I will be reviewing Ready Player 2 here in the next couple of days. Spoiler, the book has been a huge disappointment to me, but I will be doing a fair and balanced review of Ready Player 2 here in the next week or so. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for watching. Stay classy.